This little guy right here is called Scorzonera, also known as black salsify, and I guess some people use for eating or for, I don't think it has medicinal benefit.
And that is roasted sunchokes. It's a member of the sunflower family, and it's a tuber root that grows horizontally for all you botanic nerds out there.
When America faced its darkest economic crisis, families didn't survive on luck. They survived on 25 forgotten crops that most people today have never heard of. These weren't ordinary vegetables, but extraordinary plants that could grow in poor soil, store for months, and feed families when everything else failed. Let's uncover the lost crops that kept America alive during the Great Depression. Skirret, the sweet underground treasure. Long before carrots dominated American gardens, skirret provided families with clusters of sweet white roots that tasted like marshmallow-flavored parsnips. This remarkable perennial had been sustaining Europeans for centuries, and during the Great Depression, it became a secret weapon for families who knew how to grow it. What made skirret absolutely invaluable during the Depression was its perennial nature. Unlike annual crops that required replanting every year, skirret returned on its own, growing stronger and producing more roots each season. This meant families could plant it once and harvest food year after year without buying new seeds. The sweetness of skirret roots made them particularly precious when sugar was too expensive for most families to afford. These pencil-thin white roots contained natural sugars that satisfied cravings and provided energy for hard-working family members. Children especially loved these naturally sweet treats that could be eaten raw or cooked. Depression-era families learned that skirret thrived in poor soil where other crops might fail. While neighbors struggled with failed gardens, families growing skirret could count on reliable harvests from even the most challenging growing conditions. This resilience made it perfect for families who couldn't afford fertilizers or soil improvements. The harvesting method for skirret was particularly advantageous during hard times. The roots could be dug as needed throughout fall and winter, using the ground as natural cold storage. This meant fresh food was available even when root cellars were empty and preserved foods had been consumed. Cooking skirret was remarkably versatile. The roots could be boiled like potatoes, roasted until caramelized, or even ground into flour when wheat was scarce. Some families would dry and grind skirret roots to create a sweet flour substitute that added natural sweetness to bread and cakes. The propagation of skirret required no special skills or equipment. Established plants would naturally spread through underground runners, creating new plants that could be divided and shared with neighbors. This community aspect made skirret particularly valuable during times when cooperation meant survival. King Henry IV had special gardens dedicated to growing skirret, showing that even royalty recognized its exceptional value. Today, this forgotten crop represents the type of reliable, sustainable food production that helped families thrive during America's most challenging economic period. Mangel Wurzel, the giant survival root. During the Great Depression, when families needed crops that could produce massive amounts of food from minimal garden space, Mangel Wurzel delivered roots so large they could weigh up to 20 pounds each. These giant yellow beetroots, also called scarcity roots, lived up to their name by providing food when everything else was scarce. What made Mangel Wurzel absolutely essential for Depression-era families was its incredible productivity. A single plant could produce enough food to feed a family for days, and just a few plants could provide substantial nutrition throughout winter. This efficiency was crucial when every square foot of garden space had to produce maximum calories. The storage capabilities of Mangel Wurzel made it invaluable for long-term food security. These massive roots could be stored for months in cool, dry conditions, providing fresh food well into spring when new gardens were just being planted. Unlike other vegetables that spoiled quickly, Mangel Wurzel maintained its nutritional value throughout extended storage periods. Depression-era families discovered that Mangel Wurzel could grow in poor soil that would defeat other crops. During the Dust Bowl and other agricultural disasters, when good topsoil was scarce, these hardy plants continued producing food. This reliability made them essential backup crops when primary food sources failed. The dual-purpose nature of Mangel Wurzel maximized its value during hard times. Both the massive roots and large leaves were edible, giving families two vegetables from one plant. The leaves could be cooked like spinach, while the roots provided filling, nutritious meals that satisfied hunger. The preparation methods for Mangel Wurzel were remarkably diverse. Young roots could be eaten raw like regular beets, while mature roots were excellent when baked, boiled, or mashed like potatoes. Some families even learned to ferment Mangel Wurzel into alcoholic beverages, providing comfort during difficult times. The high sugar content of Mangel Wurzel made it particularly valuable when other sweeteners were unavailable. Families could cook down the roots to concentrate their natural sugars, creating syrups that sweetened other foods and provided quick energy for physical labor. One historical account mentioned growing Mangel Wurzel alongside potatoes, cabbage, parsnips, carrots, and onions in workhouse gardens, showing how essential this crop was for feeding large groups of people during economic hardship. Good King Henry, the all-season survivor. When Depression-era families needed vegetables that would produce food from early spring through late fall, Good King Henry proved itself as the ultimate all-season survivor. This remarkable perennial green emerged from winter soil before anything else, providing fresh food when families were most desperate for vitamins after long months of preserved foods. What made Good King Henry absolutely indispensable during the Great Depression was its incredible longevity and productivity. Named after a benevolent German king, this plant could produce food for decades from a single planting, returning stronger each year while requiring minimal care or resources. The early emergence of Good King Henry made it particularly valuable during the hunger gap of late winter and early spring. When stored foods were running low and new crops hadn't yet matured, families could harvest fresh shoots and leaves that provided essential vitamins and helped prevent scurvy and other deficiency diseases. Depression-era families learned to harvest Good King Henry in multiple ways throughout the growing season. The young shoots could be cut and cooked like asparagus in early spring, while the arrow-shaped leaves provided continuous greens throughout summer and fall. Even the flower buds could be eaten, extending the harvest season. The soil improvement qualities of Good King Henry made it valuable beyond just food production. Like other hardy perennials, it helped break up compacted soil and added organic matter, improving growing conditions for other crops. This soil-building aspect was crucial for families trying to maximize garden productivity. The nutritional density of Good King Henry rivaled that of modern superfoods. Rich in vitamins A and C plus iron and other essential minerals, it provided concentrated nutrition when other vitamin sources were expensive or unavailable. This nutritional power helped families maintain health during stressful times. The preservation methods for Good King Henry allowed families to extend its benefits throughout the year. Young leaves could be dried for winter seasoning, while larger leaves could be blanched and preserved like other greens. This preservation capability meant year-round access to its nutritional benefits. The self-seeding nature of Good King Henry ensured continuous supplies without replanting. Established plants would spread naturally, creating patches that could feed families for generations without additional seed purchases or garden preparation. Scorzonera, the black-rooted medicine. During the Great Depression, when families needed crops that could serve as both food and medicine, Scorzonera provided both with its distinctive black-skinned roots that hid creamy white flesh underneath. This unusual root vegetable became known as black salsify and offered families a reliable source of nutrition and natural remedies. What made Scorzonera particularly valuable to Depression-era families was its incredible winter hardiness. These roots could stay in the ground through harsh freezes, providing fresh food when nothing else would grow. This winter availability was crucial for families who had exhausted their stored foods before spring arrived. The medicinal properties of Scorzonera made it doubly valuable when professional medical care was too expensive for most families. Medieval doctors had prescribed it for treating snake bites and plague symptoms, and Depression-era families used it for purifying blood and strengthening the heart during stressful times. The flavor profile of Scorzonera set it apart from other root vegetables. The creamy white flesh had an oyster-like taste that reminded families of more expensive foods they could no longer afford. This unique flavor helped break the monotony of survival foods while providing psychological comfort. Depression-era families learned that Scorzonera roots could grow up to 3 feet long, providing substantial food from each plant. This size efficiency was crucial when garden space was limited and every plant had to produce maximum nutrition. The large roots could feed entire families for multiple meals. The storage capabilities of Scorzonera extended its usefulness well beyond the growing season. Properly stored roots could last for months in cool conditions, providing fresh vegetables when other storage crops had been consumed. This extended availability helped bridge the gap between growing seasons. The complete usability of Scorzonera plants maximized their value during hard times. The roots provided filling meals. The leaves could be eaten in salads, and the bright yellow flowers added beauty to otherwise stark Depression-era gardens. This multi-purpose nature made every plant incredibly valuable. The cultivation requirements for Scorzonera were minimal, making it perfect for families with limited gardening resources. These hardy plants thrived in poor soil and required little care, yet still produced reliable harvests even under challenging growing conditions that would defeat more demanding crops. Jerusalem artichokes, the Native American gift. Long before the Great Depression, Native Americans had cultivated Jerusalem artichokes as a reliable food source that European settlers would later depend on for survival. During the 1930s, these knobby tubers proved their worth once again, providing families with a perennial crop that returned year after year without replanting. What made Jerusalem artichokes absolutely revolutionary for Depression-era families was their self-propagating nature. Once planted, these remarkable tubers would spread underground, creating new plants that produced increasingly larger harvests each season. This meant families could plant them once and have expanding food supplies for years to come. The drought tolerance of Jerusalem artichokes made them particularly valuable during the Dust Bowl years, when rainfall was scarce and other crops failed. Their deep root systems could find moisture that other plants couldn't reach, ensuring food production even during the most challenging growing conditions. The nutritional profile of Jerusalem artichokes provided exactly what Depression-era families needed most. Rich in inulin, a natural form of sugar that provided sustained energy, these tubers helped hard-working families maintain their strength during physically demanding times when other energy sources were expensive or unavailable. Depression-era families discovered that Jerusalem artichokes could be harvested throughout the winter months. The tubers stayed fresh in the ground even through freezing temperatures, allowing families to dig fresh food whenever they needed it. This underground storage system eliminated the need for root cellars or special preservation equipment. The cooking versatility of Jerusalem artichokes made them incredibly valuable in Depression-era kitchens. They could be eaten raw like apples, boiled like potatoes, roasted for sweetness, or even pickled for preservation. Some families learned to slice and dry them, creating chips that provided quick energy for working family members. The medicinal uses of Jerusalem artichokes added another layer of value during times when medical care was unaffordable. Native Americans had used them to treat diabetes and digestive problems, knowledge that proved valuable for Depression-era families dealing with stress-related health issues. The community aspect of Jerusalem artichokes made them particularly important during the Depression. Families could easily share tubers with neighbors, helping spread this valuable crop throughout communities where cooperation and mutual aid meant the difference between survival and starvation. Orache, the heat-proof spinach. When Depression-era families needed greens that could survive scorching summer temperatures that wilted other vegetables, Orache provided the solution. This remarkable plant, also called mountain spinach, thrived in heat that would destroy regular spinach and lettuce, ensuring fresh greens throughout the hottest months. What made Orache absolutely essential during the Great Depression was its incredible heat resistance. While other leafy greens gave up during summer heat waves, Orache continued producing tender leaves that could be harvested continuously. This reliability meant families had fresh vegetables even during the most challenging growing conditions. The rapid growth of Orache made it perfect for families who needed fresh food quickly. From seed to harvest took only a few weeks, and successive plantings could provide continuous supplies of fresh greens throughout the growing season. This quick turnaround was crucial when families couldn't wait for slower crops to mature. Depression-era families valued Orache for its complete usability. The tender leaves could be eaten raw in salads or cooked like spinach, while the seeds could be ground into flour when wheat was scarce. This dual-purpose nature meant families got multiple types of food from a single crop. The colorful varieties of Orache added both nutrition and beauty to Depression-era gardens. Different varieties produced leaves in shades of red, yellow, and green, providing visual variety that lifted spirits during difficult times. Medieval manuscripts often featured Orache's distinctive colored leaves in decorative borders, showing its cultural importance. The drought tolerance of Orache made it particularly valuable during the Dust Bowl years. These hardy plants could survive with minimal water while still producing nutritious leaves. This resilience was crucial for families dealing with failed wells and limited water resources. The nutritional density of Orache rivaled that of modern superfoods. Rich in vitamins A and C, plus essential minerals, it provided concentrated nutrition that helped prevent deficiency diseases common during times of poor nutrition. This health protection was invaluable when medical care was unaffordable. The self-seeding nature of Orache ensured continuous supplies without replanting. Plants that were allowed to go to seed would produce new plants the following season, creating sustainable food systems that required minimal input but provided maximum nutrition for struggling families. Cardoon, the silvery giant. During the Great Depression, when families needed crops that could provide substantial food from impressive plants, Cardoon delivered with its dramatic silvery blue leaves that could grow up to 6 feet tall. This architectural plant, closely related to artichokes, became a striking addition to gardens while providing multiple types of food. What made Cardoon particularly valuable to Depression-era families was its complete usability. The thick stalks could be blanched and eaten like celery, the flower buds could be prepared like artichokes, and the flowers themselves produced enzymes that were essential for cheese-making when families kept milk cows or goats. The impressive size of Cardoon plants made them efficient producers in small garden spaces. Each plant could provide dozens of meals throughout the growing season, and the dramatic appearance added beauty to otherwise utilitarian Depression-era gardens. This combination of function and beauty was important for maintaining family morale. Depression-era families learned the traditional blanching techniques that made Cardoon stalks tender and mild-flavored. By wrapping the stalks in burlap or newspapers several weeks before harvest, families could create tender vegetables with a delicate artichoke flavor that reminded them of better times. The monastery gardens of Europe had particularly favored Cardoon, and this knowledge proved valuable for American families seeking reliable food sources. The techniques developed by European gardeners for growing and preparing Cardoon helped families maximize both yields and flavor from these impressive plants. The preservation methods for Cardoon allowed families to extend its benefits throughout the year. The stalks could be blanched and canned, while the flowers could be dried and saved for cheesemaking. This preservation capability meant year-round access to both food and important food processing aids. The soil improvement qualities of Cardoon made it valuable beyond just food production. The large plants with extensive root systems helped break up compacted soil while adding substantial organic matter when composted. This soil-building aspect improved growing conditions for other crops. The medicinal uses of Cardoon added another layer of value during times when medical care was expensive. Traditional healers had used various parts of the plant for treating liver problems and other ailments, providing families with natural remedies when pharmaceutical medicines were unaffordable. Alexander's, the Conqueror's legacy. When Roman legions conquered territories across Europe, they carried seeds of Alexanders wherever they went, establishing this versatile herb-vegetable that would later help families survive the Great Depression. Every part of the plant, leaves, stems, roots, flowers, and black seeds, found its way into survival kitchens. What made Alexander's absolutely invaluable during the Depression was its complete edibility. Unlike other plants that provided only one type of food, Alexander's gave families multiple ingredients from a single plant. The young leaves could be used in salads, the stems cooked like celery, and the roots prepared like parsnips. The coastal tolerance of Alexander's made it particularly valuable for families living near shorelines where salt spray would kill other vegetables. These hardy plants thrived in areas where few other food crops could survive, turning otherwise unusable land into productive garden space that could feed families. The unique flavor profile of Alexander's provided welcome variety during monotonous Depression-era meals, combining tastes reminiscent of celery, parsley, and myrrh. This plant could transform simple soups and stews into more complex, satisfying meals that helped maintain family morale during difficult times. Depression-era families learned to use Alexander's throughout the growing season. Early spring brought tender young leaves, summer provided thick stems for cooking, and fall offered roots and seeds for storage. This extended harvest season meant continuous food production from the same plants. The medicinal properties of Alexander's added value beyond mere nutrition. Traditional healers had used various parts of the plant for treating scurvy and other vitamin deficiency diseases common during times of poor nutrition. This medicinal aspect was crucial when professional medical care was beyond most families' reach. The self-seeding nature of Alexander's created sustainable food systems that required minimal maintenance. Plants that were allowed to flower and set seed would produce new plants the following season, ensuring continuous supplies without the need to purchase new seeds or replant gardens. The community value of Alexander's came from its abundance and ease of propagation. Families could easily share seeds and plants with neighbors, helping spread this valuable food source throughout communities where mutual aid and cooperation were essential for survival during America's most challenging economic period. Bistort, the celebration root. During the Great Depression, when families needed crops that could thrive in difficult conditions while providing both food and medicine, Bistort offered solutions with its twisted roots and nutritious leaves. This remarkable plant had sustained European communities for centuries, particularly in areas too wet for other crops. What made Bistort especially valuable to Depression-era families was its ability to grow in waterlogged soil, where other vegetables would fail. During years of unusual rainfall or in areas with poor drainage, Bistort continued producing food when other crops rotted. This adaptability was crucial for families who couldn't afford to lose entire harvests. The medicinal properties of Bistort made it doubly important when medical care was expensive or unavailable. The tannic roots had been used for centuries to treat dysentery and wounds, providing families with natural remedies during times when pharmaceutical medicines were beyond their reach. Depression-era families learned that Bistort leaves formed the base of traditional Easter ledge pudding, a community celebration dish that marked winter's end. Even during the hardest times, families could gather wild Bistort leaves, mix them with whatever grains and eggs they could find, and create communal meals that built community spirit. The distinctive twisted roots that gave Bistort its name, meaning twice twisted, could be harvested and prepared in multiple ways. These roots provided filling, nutritious meals, while their medicinal properties helped families maintain health during stressful times when good nutrition was challenging to achieve. The ornamental value of Bistort added beauty to Depression-era gardens through its pink flower spikes. During times when life felt hopeless, having beautiful plants that also provided food and medicine helped maintain psychological well-being that was essential for family survival. The perennial nature of Bistort meant it returned year after year without replanting, providing reliable food and medicine for families who couldn't afford annual seed purchases. This long-term productivity was crucial for establishing sustainable food systems during extended economic hardship. The community gathering traditions associated with Bistort helped maintain social connections during isolating times. Families would gather together to harvest wild Bistort and prepare traditional dishes, maintaining cultural connections and mutual support systems that were essential for psychological survival during the Depression. Salsify, the poor man's oyster. When Depression-era families craved the luxury foods they could no longer afford, Salsify provided an unexpected solution with its oyster-like flavor that earned it the nickname poor man's oyster. This remarkable root vegetable brought a taste of the sea to inland families who had no access to expensive seafood. What made Salsify absolutely essential during the Great Depression was its ability to provide protein-rich nutrition with a flavor that reminded families of better times. When meat was scarce and expensive, seafood was impossible, Salsify roots offered a satisfying alternative that helped maintain family morale through difficult periods. The reliability of Salsify made it perfect for challenging growing conditions. These hardy plants thrived in poor soil that would defeat more demanding crops, ensuring families could grow food even when they couldn't afford soil improvements or fertilizers. This resilience was crucial for survival gardening. Depression-era families learned that Salsify could be left in the ground through winter, using the earth as natural cold storage. When root cellars were empty and preserved foods had been consumed, families could still dig fresh Salsify roots from frozen ground, providing nutrition when other food sources were exhausted. The versatility of Salsify in Depression-era kitchens made it incredibly valuable. The roots could be boiled and mashed like potatoes, fried into crispy chips, or added to soups where their oyster flavor enhanced simple broths. Some families would slice and dry Salsify roots for long-term storage. The dual-purpose nature of Salsify maximized its value during hard times. Both the nutritious roots and tender young leaves were edible, giving families two vegetables from one plant. The leaves could be eaten raw in salads or cooked like spinach, providing vitamins throughout the growing season. The seed-saving tradition with Salsify was particularly important since this vegetable wasn't commonly available commercially. Families who successfully grew Salsify would carefully save seeds to ensure future crops, often sharing with neighbors to spread this valuable survival food throughout their communities. The psychological benefits of Salsify's unique flavor helped families cope with the stress of survival eating, providing a reminder of abundance and luxury during times when such experiences seemed impossible to achieve. Lamb's quarters, the iron-rich volunteer. During the Great Depression, nature provided families with one of their most valuable allies through lamb's quarters, a hardy plant that appeared on its own in gardens and vacant lots across America. This remarkable volunteer green packed more nutrition than many cultivated vegetables while requiring absolutely no care or resources to grow. What made lamb's quarters absolutely revolutionary for struggling families was its ability to appear spontaneously wherever soil had been disturbed. While families were trying to establish gardens with limited resources, lamb's quarters would emerge naturally, providing instant access to nutrient-dense food without any investment in seeds or planting. The nutritional superiority of lamb's quarters over common greens made it particularly valuable during times when vitamin deficiencies were common. Rich in iron, vitamins A and C, and essential minerals, this wild green provided concentrated nutrition that helped prevent scurvy, anemia, and other diseases caused by poor diet. Depression-era families learned to distinguish lamb's quarters from other wild plants and to harvest it throughout the growing season. The tender young leaves could be eaten raw in salads, while mature leaves were excellent when cooked like spinach. This versatility meant families could use it in multiple ways. The drought tolerance of lamb's quarters made it incredibly reliable during the Dust Bowl years. While cultivated crops withered in the heat and drought, lamb's quarters continued growing vigorously, providing green vegetables when everything else had failed. This resilience was literally life-saving for many families. The prolific nature of lamb's quarters ensured continuous supplies throughout the growing season. Plants would reseed themselves readily, creating ongoing sources of fresh greens without any effort from families already overwhelmed by survival challenges. This self-sustaining aspect was crucial during extended economic hardship. The complete usability of lamb's quarters maximized its value for hungry families. The tender leaves provided fresh eating, the seeds could be ground into flour when wheat was scarce, and even the young shoots could be harvested and prepared like asparagus. The community aspect of lamb's quarters knowledge was particularly important. Experienced foragers would teach others how to identify and use this valuable plant, spreading knowledge that could literally mean the difference between adequate nutrition and starvation during America's darkest economic period. Purslane, the omega-3 succulent. When Depression-era families needed vegetables that could survive the harsh, dry conditions of the Dust Bowl, Purslane provided one of nature's most resilient solutions. This succulent weed with fleshy leaves thrived in conditions that would kill other plants, providing essential nutrition when families needed it most. What made Purslane absolutely invaluable during the Great Depression was its incredible drought tolerance. While other vegetables withered and died during the severe droughts of the 1930s, Purslane continued growing and producing food. This reliability was crucial for families who couldn't afford to lose entire crops to weather disasters. The nutritional density of Purslane amazed anyone who understood its true value. Rich in omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin A, and vitamin C, this humble weed provided better nutrition than many expensive store-bought vegetables. This concentrated nutrition helped families maintain health during times when varied diets were impossible. Depression-era families learned to appreciate Purslane's slightly sour, lemony flavor that could brighten otherwise bland survival meals. When food was monotonous and spirits were low, the bright taste of fresh Purslane added welcome variety to meals consisting mainly of beans, potatoes, and preserved foods. The versatility of Purslane in Depression-era kitchens made it incredibly valuable. It could be eaten fresh in salads, pickled for preservation, or cooked in stir-fries and soups. Some families would chop it and add it to whatever other ingredients they had, stretching meals while adding nutrition. The continuous harvest potential of Purslane meant families could pick it throughout the growing season. Unlike crops that matured all at once, Purslane provided ongoing supplies of fresh food as long as temperatures remained warm. This extended availability was crucial for families with limited food storage capabilities. The medicinal properties of Purslane added another layer of value during times when medical care was unaffordable. Traditional healers had used Purslane to treat various ailments, and families appreciated having access to natural remedies when pharmaceutical medicines were beyond their financial reach. The self-seeding nature of Purslane ensured it would return each year without replanting, creating sustainable food sources that required no investment but provided reliable nutrition for families struggling to survive America's worst economic crisis. Wild onions, the flavor survivors. During the Great Depression, when families needed to add flavor and nutrition to monotonous survival meals, wild onions provided both while growing freely in fields, forests, and along roadsides across America. These hardy alliums brought depth and complexity to simple foods while providing essential vitamins that helped prevent deficiency diseases. What made wild onions absolutely essential for Depression-era families was their accessibility and abundance. While store-bought seasonings were expensive luxuries, wild onions could be foraged for free wherever they grew naturally. This accessibility meant even the poorest families could add flavor to their basic meals. The vitamin C content of wild onions made them particularly valuable during times when fresh fruits were expensive or unavailable. Regular consumption of wild onions helped families prevent scurvy and other vitamin deficiency diseases that were common during periods of poor nutrition. Depression-era families learned to use both the bulbs and leaves of wild onions, maximizing the nutrition from every plant they found. The pungent bulbs could be used like regular onions in cooking, while the green leaves could be chopped and added to salads or used as garnishes for soups and stews. Preservation methods for wild onions allowed families to extend their benefits throughout the year. They could be braided and hung to dry, pickled in vinegar, or chopped and dried for later use as seasoning. This preservation capability meant families could have flavoring available even during winter months. The flavor transformation that wild onions provided was crucial for maintaining family morale during difficult times. When meals consisted mainly of beans, potatoes, and preserved foods, the addition of wild onions could make the difference between barely palatable survival food and meals that families actually wanted to eat. The medicinal properties of wild onions were recognized by families who understood traditional remedies. Like cultivated onions, wild varieties had natural antibiotic properties that helped families fight infections when medical care was too expensive or unavailable. The community knowledge sharing around wild onion foraging was particularly important. Experienced foragers would teach others how to identify edible wild onions and distinguish them from potentially harmful lookalikes, spreading knowledge that could provide families with valuable free food sources. Burdock, the deep-rooted survivor. During the Great Depression, when families needed crops that could produce substantial food from challenging soil conditions, burdock provided massive roots that could grow up to 3 feet long. This thistle-like plant with large, heart-shaped leaves became a common sight in Depression-era gardens where families valued its reliability and nutritional density. What made burdock particularly valuable to struggling families was its ability to thrive in poor, compacted soil where other vegetables would fail. The deep taproot could break through hardpan and access nutrients and moisture that shallow-rooted crops couldn't reach, ensuring food production even in challenging growing conditions. The impressive size of burdock roots made them efficient food producers for families who needed maximum nutrition from limited garden space. Each plant could provide enough food for multiple meals, and the roots had excellent storage capabilities when properly preserved, extending their value throughout winter months. Depression-era families learned that burdock roots were incredibly versatile in the kitchen. They could be sliced and stir-fried, boiled like potatoes, or dried and ground into flour when wheat was scarce. The young leaves were also edible when cooked, providing two types of food from one plant. The medicinal properties of burdock made it doubly valuable during times when medical care was expensive or unavailable. Traditional healers had used burdock root to purify blood and treat various skin conditions, providing families with natural remedies during stressful times when health problems were common. The soil improvement qualities of burdock made it valuable beyond just food production. The deep roots helped break up compacted soil and brought nutrients from deep layers to the surface, improving growing conditions for other crops. This soil-building aspect was crucial for families trying to maximize garden productivity. The timing flexibility of burdock harvests allowed families to dig roots when they needed them most. Unlike crops that had to be harvested at specific times, burdock roots could be left in the ground and dug as needed throughout fall and winter, providing fresh food when other storage foods were running low. The seed-saving tradition with burdock was particularly important for maintaining supplies of this valuable crop, ensuring families could continue growing this reliable food source year after year. Dandelions, the vitamin powerhouse. While most people today consider dandelions to be lawn weeds, Depression-era families recognized these golden flowers and nutritious leaves as vitamin powerhouses that could prevent scurvy and other deficiency diseases. These remarkable plants provided more nutrition than many expensive store-bought vegetables while growing freely everywhere. What made dandelions absolutely revolutionary for struggling families was their early spring emergence when other food sources were depleted. After long winters of preserved foods and stored vegetables, the first fresh dandelion greens provided essential vitamins that helped families regain strength and prevent illness. The nutritional superiority of dandelions over many cultivated greens made them particularly valuable during times when varied diets were impossible. Rich in vitamins A, C, and K, plus iron and calcium, dandelions provided concentrated nutrition that helped maintain family health during stressful periods. Depression-era families learned to harvest different parts of dandelions throughout the growing season. Young leaves could be eaten raw in early spring salads. Older leaves could be cooked like spinach, and the roots could be roasted and ground as a coffee substitute when real coffee was too expensive. Medicinal properties of dandelions were well known to families who understood traditional remedies. Various parts of the plant had been used to treat liver problems, digestive issues, and other ailments, providing families with natural health care when medical treatment was unaffordable. The complete usability of dandelion plants maximized their value for families with limited resources. The leaves provided nutrition, the flowers could be made into wine or fritters, the roots served as coffee substitute, and even the white sap had medicinal uses. Nothing was wasted. The cultivation of improved dandelion varieties by knowledgeable gardeners produced leaves twice the size of wild cousins with less bitterness. These cultivated varieties provided better eating while maintaining the hardiness and reliability that made dandelions valuable survival foods. The community aspect of dandelion knowledge was particularly important. Experienced foragers would teach others the best times to harvest, how to reduce bitterness through proper preparation, and which parts of the plant were most nutritious, spreading knowledge that could significantly improve family nutrition during difficult times. Wild berries, the sweet survival treats. During the Great Depression, when sugar was expensive and sweet treats were rare luxuries, wild berries provided families with natural sweetness while delivering essential vitamins and antioxidants. Blackberries, raspberries, and elderberries growing in fields, forests, and along roadsides became precious resources for struggling families. What made wild berries absolutely invaluable during the Depression was their abundance and accessibility. While store-bought fruits were expensive luxuries, wild berries could be gathered for free by families willing to spend time foraging. This free food source provided both nutrition and psychological comfort during difficult times. The vitamin content of wild berries made them particularly important for preventing deficiency diseases common during times of poor nutrition. Rich in vitamin C and antioxidants, these fruits helped boost immune systems and maintain health when families were stressed and vulnerable to illness. Depression-era families learned to preserve wild berries through multiple methods to extend their benefits throughout the year. Berries could be eaten fresh during harvest season, made into jams and jellies for winter use, or dried for long-term storage. This preservation capability meant sweet treats were available year-round. The competition aspect of berry gathering taught families important lessons about timing and persistence. People often had to compete with birds and other wildlife for the best berries, learning to harvest early in the morning and to check patches frequently during peak season. The community cooperation around berry gathering was particularly important during the Depression. Families would share information about productive patches and help each other with large harvests, building social connections that were crucial for psychological survival during isolating economic hardship. Cooking versatility of wild berries allowed families to use them in multiple ways. Fresh berries could be eaten as snacks or added to simple meals for sweetness. Cooked berries could be made into pies and cobblers when flour and other ingredients were available, creating special treats for family celebrations. The seasonal anticipation that wild berries provided helped maintain hope during difficult times. Families could look forward to berry season as a time of abundance and sweetness, providing psychological benefits that were almost as important as the nutritional ones. The knowledge passed down through generations about wild berry identification and preparation became crucial survival information during the Depression, helping families safely gather and use these valuable free food sources. Prickly pear cactus, the desert survivor. In the arid regions of the American Southwest, where the Great Depression coincided with severe drought conditions, prickly pear cactus provided both food and water for families struggling to survive. This remarkable desert plant offered multiple types of nutrition while thriving in conditions that would kill conventional crops. What made prickly pear cactus absolutely essential for Southwestern families was its incredible drought tolerance. While other food sources failed during the severe droughts of the 1930s, prickly pear continued producing both edible pads and sweet fruits, providing reliable nutrition when conventional agriculture was impossible. The dual food sources from prickly pear made it incredibly valuable for families with limited options. The fleshy pads, called no-pales, could be peeled and cooked like vegetables, while the colorful fruits, known as tunas, could be eaten fresh or made into jams and syrups that provided rare sweetness. Depression-era families in desert regions learned traditional preparation methods that made prickly pear safe and delicious to eat. Careful removal of spines and proper cooking techniques transformed this challenging plant into nutritious meals that could sustain families through difficult periods. The water content of prickly pear was particularly valuable during drought conditions when clean water was scarce. The mucilaginous juice from the pads could provide hydration, while the fruits offered additional moisture, along with natural sugars that provided quick energy. The medicinal properties of prickly pear added another layer of survival value. Families used the mucilaginous juice to treat burns and wounds, providing natural first aid when medical supplies were unavailable or too expensive. This dual-purpose nature made prickly pear incredibly valuable. The preservation methods for prickly pear allowed families to extend its benefits beyond the harvest season. Fruits could be dried into sweet treats, made into preserves, or fermented into alcoholic beverages. Pads could be pickled or dried for later use, ensuring year-round access to this valuable food source. The cultural knowledge surrounding prickly pear use was particularly important in southwestern communities. Families with Mexican or Native American heritage shared traditional preparation techniques with neighbors, spreading valuable survival skills throughout communities where cooperation was essential for survival. Ground cherries, the paper-wrapped treasures. During the Great Depression, when families rarely experienced sweet treats, ground cherries provided naturally wrapped candies that children could discover like hidden treasures in the garden. These unusual fruits, enclosed in papery husks resembling tiny Chinese lanterns, brought sweetness and joy to families during the darkest times. What made ground cherries absolutely magical for Depression-era families was their natural packaging system. The papery husks protected the sweet golden fruits inside while allowing them to store for months without any special preservation equipment. This natural storage capability was invaluable when families had limited resources. The tropical flavor of ground cherries provided welcome variety during monotonous Depression-era meals. Tasting like a combination of pineapple and vanilla, these small fruits offered exotic flavors that reminded families of abundance and better times, providing important psychological benefits during difficult periods. Depression-era families learned that ground cherries were remarkably easy to grow, thriving even in poor soil conditions where other fruits might fail. This reliability made them perfect crops for families who couldn't afford gardening failures or who lacked experience growing food. The self-seeding nature of ground cherries created sustainable food systems that required minimal maintenance. Once established, these plants would return year after year, often growing in new areas where seeds had been dropped, creating expanding patches of free food for families to discover. The continuous production of ground cherries throughout the growing season meant families had ongoing access to fresh fruits from midsummer until frost. Unlike other fruits that ripened all at once, ground cherries provided steady supplies that could be harvested as needed. The preservation methods for ground cherries were remarkably simple. The fruits could be left in their husks and stored in cool, dry places for months, maintaining their quality without any processing. This ease of storage made them valuable for families with limited preservation knowledge. The community value of ground cherries came from their ability to spread naturally and be easily shared. Tumbleweed, the rolling sustenance. During the devastating Dust Bowl years of the Great Depression, when conventional crops failed and livestock were starving, tumbleweed became an unexpected source of sustenance for both animals and desperately hungry families. This rolling plant, while not ideal food, provided essential nutrition when absolutely nothing else was available. What made tumbleweed valuable during the most desperate times was its abundance in areas where everything else had died. When dust storms had destroyed crops and drought had killed gardens, tumbleweed continued to grow and spread, providing at least some source of plant material that could be consumed. The preparation methods that families developed for tumbleweed showed incredible resourcefulness during extreme hardship. Young plants could be chopped and added to soups and salads, while older plants required more processing but still provided some nutritional value when properly prepared. Depression-era families learned that cattle in the Dust Bowl-stricken states had survived by eating tumbleweed, and desperate human families followed this example. While not pleasant eating, tumbleweed could provide enough nutrition to prevent starvation when combined with whatever other food sources families could find. The availability of tumbleweed during the worst environmental disasters made it a true survival food. When dust storms had buried crops and drought had killed everything else, families could still gather tumbleweed and use it to extend whatever other food they had managed to preserve or find. The processing techniques for tumbleweed required creativity and determination. Families would wash the plants thoroughly, chop them finely, and cook them extensively to make them more palatable and digestible. The bitter taste was often masked by cooking with whatever seasonings or other ingredients were available. The psychological aspect of eating tumbleweed represented the absolute bottom of Depression-era survival. Families who resorted to eating this plant were truly desperate, but it kept them alive when other food sources had been completely exhausted. Milkweed, the emergency green. During the Great Depression, when families were desperate for any source of fresh vegetables, milkweed provided edible young shoots and pods that could be safely consumed when properly prepared. This common wildflower, found growing naturally across America, became an emergency food source for families who understood how to process it correctly. What made milkweed valuable for Depression-era families was its widespread availability and the substantial amount of food each plant could provide. The young shoots could be harvested in spring like asparagus, while the tender young pods provided additional food later in the season when properly cooked. The preparation requirements for milkweed were crucial for safety, as the plant contained bitter compounds that needed to be removed through proper cooking. Families learned to boil milkweed multiple times, changing the water each time, to remove the bitter white sap and make the plant safe and palatable to eat. Depression-era families discovered that properly prepared milkweed pods could be quite nutritious and filling. When boiled until tender and seasoned with whatever was available, these pods provided substantial food that could help stretch other scarce ingredients into complete meals. The medicinal properties of milkweed were known to some families who understood traditional plant uses. While primarily used as emergency food, some parts of the plant had been used medicinally by Native Americans, providing additional value during times when medical care was unaffordable. The timing of milkweed harvests was critical for both safety and palatability. Young shoots and very young pods were the safest and most tender parts to eat, requiring families to understand the plant's growth cycle and harvest at optimal times for the best results. The community knowledge sharing around milkweed preparation was essential for safe use. Experienced foragers would teach others the proper identification, harvesting, and preparation techniques, ensuring that this emergency food source could be used safely by families desperate enough to need it. Chickweed, the gentle wild green. During the Great Depression, when families needed tender, mild-flavored greens that could be easily gathered and prepared, chickweed provided one of nature's gentlest wild foods. This delicate plant with small white flowers grew abundantly in gardens, yards, and waste areas, offering nutritious greens throughout the cool months. What made chickweed particularly valuable for Depression-era families was its mild, pleasant flavor that even children would eat willingly. Unlike some wild greens that were bitter or required extensive preparation, chickweed could be eaten raw or lightly cooked, making it accessible for families with limited cooking fuel or equipment. The extended growing season of chickweed provided fresh greens when other sources were unavailable. This hardy plant grew during cool weather when other greens had died back, providing fresh vitamins during late fall, winter, and early spring when families most needed nutritional supplements. Depression-era families learned that chickweed was incredibly nutritious despite its delicate appearance. Rich in vitamins C and A, plus essential minerals, this humble plant provided concentrated nutrition that helped prevent deficiency diseases common during times of poor diet. The ease of identification made chickweed safe for inexperienced foragers. With its distinctive small white star-shaped flowers and tender green leaves, chickweed was relatively easy to recognize and distinguish from potentially harmful plants, making it a safer choice for families new to wild food gathering. The medicinal properties of chickweed added value beyond nutrition. Traditional healers had used chickweed to treat skin problems and inflammation, providing families with natural remedies when pharmaceutical medicines were too expensive or unavailable. The abundance of chickweed meant families could gather substantial amounts quickly when they found good patches. This efficiency was important for families who had limited time to spend foraging while managing other survival activities. The gentle preparation methods for chickweed made it accessible even for families with minimal cooking skills. It could be added raw to salads, lightly steamed like spinach, or thrown into soups and stews at the last minute, requiring no special techniques or extensive cooking knowledge. The community sharing of chickweed knowledge helped spread awareness of this valuable free food source throughout neighborhoods where families were struggling to maintain adequate nutrition. Plantain, the natural bandage plant. During the Great Depression, when families needed plants that could serve as both food and medicine, plantain provided both with its nutritious leaves and remarkable healing properties. This common weed grew in yards, along roadsides, and in disturbed soil across America, offering families a reliable source of nutrition and natural first aid. What made plantain absolutely invaluable for Depression-era families was its dual role as food and medicine. The young leaves could be eaten raw or cooked as nutritious greens, while the same leaves could be used to treat cuts, burns, and other injuries when medical care was too expensive. The ribbed leaves of plantain made it easy to identify safely, reducing the risk of dangerous mistakes that could harm families unfamiliar with wild plant identification. This safety factor was crucial for families desperate enough to try foraging, but lacking extensive knowledge about wild foods. Depression-era families learned that plantain was remarkably nutritious, despite being considered a common weed. Rich in vitamins A and C, plus essential minerals, plantain provided valuable nutrition that helped maintain health during times when varied diets were impossible to achieve. The medicinal applications of plantain earned it the nickname nature's bandage among families who understood its healing properties. Fresh leaves could be chewed and applied to wounds, or the juice could be extracted to treat various skin problems and minor injuries. The year-round availability of plantain made it particularly valuable for families needing reliable access to both food and medicine. Different species grew during different seasons, ensuring that some form of plantain was usually available when families needed it. The preparation methods for plantain were simple enough for any family to master. Young leaves could be eaten raw, older leaves could be cooked like spinach, and the seeds could be ground into flour when other grains were scarce. The community knowledge about plantain was often passed down through generations or shared among neighbors, helping families learn to identify and use this valuable plant safely and effectively during times when such knowledge could significantly improve their chances of survival. Wood sorrel, the sour survival snack. During the Great Depression, when families craved fresh, tangy flavors to break the monotony of bland survival foods, wood sorrel provided a lemony taste that could brighten meals and lift spirits. This small plant, with heart-shaped leaves and delicate flowers, grew in shaded areas where other food plants couldn't survive. What made wood sorrel particularly valuable for Depression-era families was its ability to grow in shaded areas, under trees, and around buildings where other edible plants wouldn't thrive. This shade tolerance meant families could find food in areas they might otherwise consider unproductive for food gathering. The pleasant, sour taste of wood sorrel made it especially appealing to children who might refuse other wild foods. The lemony flavor provided a welcome change from the often bland and monotonous foods that comprised most Depression-era meals, helping maintain family morale during difficult times. Depression-era families learned that wood sorrel was rich in vitamin C, making it particularly valuable for preventing scurvy and other deficiency diseases. The tangy taste that made it appealing was actually an indication of its high vitamin content, which was crucial for maintaining health during stressful times. The availability of wood sorrel throughout the growing season provided families with ongoing access to fresh vitamins. Unlike some wild foods that were only available briefly, wood sorrel could be gathered from spring through fall, providing consistent nutritional supplements. The multiple uses of wood sorrel in Depression-era kitchens made it versatile despite its small size. The leaves could be eaten fresh as snacks, added to salads for tang, or cooked in soups, where the sour flavor enhanced simple broths and stews. The ease of gathering wood sorrel meant even children could help collect it for family meals. The small plants were easy to pick, and their distinctive heart-shaped leaves made them relatively easy to identify safely. The medicinal properties of wood sorrel were recognized by families who understood traditional remedies. The plant had been used to treat various ailments and provide natural vitamin C supplementation, offering families basic health care when professional medical treatment was beyond their financial reach. Wild garlic, the pungent protector. During the Great Depression, when families needed both flavor enhancement and natural health protection, wild garlic provided both with its pungent bulbs and green shoots that grew freely in woods and fields across America. This powerful plant offered the same benefits as cultivated garlic while requiring no planting or care. What made wild garlic absolutely essential for Depression-era families was its powerful antibiotic properties at a time when medical care was expensive and pharmaceutical antibiotics didn't exist. Regular consumption of wild garlic helped families fight infections and maintain health during stressful times when they were vulnerable to illness. The flavor transformation that wild garlic provided was crucial for making bland survival foods more palatable. When meals consisted mainly of beans, potatoes, and preserved vegetables, the addition of wild garlic could make the difference between food that families could barely tolerate and meals they actually wanted to eat. Depression-era families learned to identify wild garlic by its distinctive onion-like smell and appearance, making it relatively safe for inexperienced foragers. The unmistakable garlic scent helped prevent dangerous mistakes that could occur with other wild foods that might have harmful lookalikes. The complete usability of wild garlic plants maximized their value for families with limited resources. Both the bulbs and green shoots were edible, providing different flavors and textures that could be used throughout the growing season as the plants developed. The preservation methods for wild garlic allowed families to extend its benefits throughout the year. The bulbs could be braided and dried like regular garlic, while the green shoots could be chopped and dried for use as seasoning during winter months when fresh flavoring was unavailable. The medicinal applications of wild garlic were well known to families who understood traditional remedies. Beyond its antibiotic properties, wild garlic was used to treat respiratory problems and boost immune systems during times when staying healthy was crucial for family survival. The community sharing of wild garlic knowledge helped spread awareness of this valuable free resource. Experienced foragers would teach others where to find productive patches and how to harvest sustainably to ensure continued availability for the community. Acorns, the Native American staple. During the Great Depression, when families were desperate for any source of calories and nutrition, acorns provided a traditional food source that Native Americans had relied upon for thousands of years. These nuts from oak trees offered substantial nutrition and calories when properly processed, though they required knowledge and effort to prepare safely. What made acorns potentially valuable for Depression-era families was their abundance and high-calorie content. Oak trees produced massive crops of acorns that could provide substantial nutrition for families willing to learn the traditional processing methods that made them edible and nutritious. The processing requirements for acorns were complex but crucial for safety and palatability. The nuts contained bitter tannins that needed to be leached out through repeated soaking and rinsing before they could be ground into flour. This process required time, water, and knowledge, but could produce nutritious food. Depression-era families who learned traditional acorn processing could create flour that provided essential calories when wheat and other grains were scarce or expensive. Acorn flour could be used to make bread, porridge, and other filling foods that helped sustain families through difficult periods. The seasonal timing of acorn harvests provided families with food during fall when many other wild foods were becoming scarce. This timing was particularly valuable for building food stores before winter, when foraging opportunities would be severely limited. The nutritional value of properly processed acorns made the effort worthwhile for families facing starvation. Rich in calories, carbohydrates, and some protein, acorn flour could provide substantial nutrition that helped families survive when other food sources were exhausted. The community knowledge required for safe acorn processing was typically shared among families with Native American heritage or those who had learned traditional food preparation methods. This knowledge was literally life-saving for families desperate enough to attempt processing these challenging but nutritious nuts. The storage capabilities of processed acorn flour allowed families to preserve this food for extended periods, providing security during the winter months when other food sources were unavailable and families were most vulnerable to starvation. The lost wisdom of survival. These 25 forgotten crops weren't just plants. They were lifelines that demonstrated the incredible resourcefulness and botanical knowledge that kept American families alive during the nation's darkest economic period. Each crop was chosen not for convenience or appearance, but for its proven ability to survive harsh conditions, provide essential nutrition, and sustain families when conventional food systems failed. What made these forgotten crops truly remarkable was how they worked together as a complete survival system. Fast-growing plants like Orache and lamb's quarters provided immediate nutrition, while perennial crops like Skirret and Good King Henry offered long-term food security. Wild foods like dandelions and purslane required no planting but delivered concentrated nutrition, while storage crops like Mangel, Wurzel, and Scorzonera bridged the gap between seasons. The knowledge required to identify, grow, and prepare these crops represented generations of accumulated wisdom that meant the difference between survival and starvation. Families who understood these plants could find food where others saw only weeds, could grow nutrition in soil where others failed, and could maintain health when conventional food sources were exhausted. Today, as we face our own uncertainties about food security and economic stability, these forgotten crops offer the same solutions they provided during the Great Depression. They remind us that true food independence comes from understanding the plants that have sustained human populations through every crisis. The seeds of survival still exist. The knowledge can still be learned. The only question is whether we'll rediscover these forgotten allies before we need them, just as our predecessors did when they saw hard times approaching. Which of these forgotten crops will you learn about first?